Okay, thank you everyone for joining. That was very quick that a lot of people joined. I guess a lot of people had some reminders. Awesome. Today, our guest is MELD. I'm pretty excited for that. Okay, 1 second. I just have to invite Matt. But I did send an invite to MELD, so you should have it in your inbox. 1 second. Awesome. Matt, you're with us.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome.
Victor is here too. Let me just quickly approve him. All right, awesome.
Sure,
MELD is here.
I'll request a speaker status on the main account, but just for visibility, just park it here. Just use this as a fallback in case I get rugged.
Yeah, Hosky's here, so I guess there's going to be some rugging.
Hey, Hosky. Yeah, don't jinx us, dogs.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. This worked out pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
cool.
We're
So we have
this
Matt
sport here, so.
Sorry?
We're veterans of this Twitter space sport, Victor and I, so we know how to get these things up and running pretty quick, because God knows we've been rugged a lot of times and had like all sorts of like problems getting them up and running. People with outdated versions of Twitter, so like the spaces weren't working correctly, they couldn't speak, kept rugging us. Like, we know all about those issues.
Honestly, I'm really concerned. Last week I had DeFi yield over and my phone just froze mid space. Like it completely kicked me out of Twitter. But luckily everything continued without me and I was just maybe gone for 30 seconds. But if I'm gone today, that probably just means my phone is dead and I'm online looking for a new one. So
yeah,
just as a heads up.
That's basically why I log in with the MELD account too, right? I use the host space, but I have my own. So if like one of the accounts gets rugged, I can be like, oh, hey, I'm still here.
Good call.
Multiple layers of redundancy.
So we have you, Matt, and Victor with us, and is Andrew with us as well on the main channel, or?
He might be joining later.
Okay, awesome, cool. Then thank you guys for joining. Pleasure to have you guys. I'm quite excited because MELD is a different kind of project than we had so far. You guys are more finance focused, so that's quite cool. I think there's a very particular community very interested in this kind of topic. So I think today's going to be a pretty cool space. Yeah, so
Thank you for having us. It's very interesting because you're actually, in practicality, you're the first DEX that listed us. You know, when the token launched, you were the first place where you could buy MELD. So it's nice to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we were the first DEX, so for most of the tokens, we were kind of the first place to launch. But still, you guys came. It's you guys like your story is quite a big one. I have to say, I've been following you for a really long time, so it's quite cool to have you as a guest today. So I would say, if fine with you guys, maybe just give a bit of an overview on MELD, just a bit of a 2-3 sentences, and then we can go a bit more in depth.
It's a borrowing and lending protocol being built on the Cardano blockchain, and we just basically want to bring decentralized finance to the masses, I suppose, and the most short way possible.
The banking stack of DeFi.
There we go. That's the tagline.
The banking stack of DeFi. I like that. We'll drill that a bit in more detail soon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say let's go a bit more in the past. If you could tell us maybe how it all came to be, what was the original team, what was the story that led to founding of MELD?
Originally, Ken had contracted High for other projects in the past, and they got to talking, and it turns out they're both fans of cryptocurrency, and High is a big fan of Haskell. He likes functional programming, and so that naturally made him gravitate towards Cardano. And so they thought about, like, since all the DeFi was built on the account model, I think they decided to take a stab at it on the UTXO model, because like each model has its own advantages and disadvantages, and so I think it's one element of go with what you know, and two, another part of going with something that would I think be once the final, like once the later iterations of Cardano are present, as far as like scaling goes, it would be a better model, better base layer to build DeFi on top of.
And as for why they wanted to do MELD as a project, the story goes that Ken had some friends which were into crypto, and he kept going out with them to dinner and have drinks and stuff like that. And they were telling stories like how well they're doing into crypto and all of that stuff, but they never could pay for dinner because everything was tied in crypto. So at some point, Ken was like, you know what, we need a better way to do stuff, and a decentralized way, a way in which everybody can do their own stuff and not be concerned that at some point somebody might just block you or just take your stuff for whatever reason. So that's why he wanted to start MELD and make it as decentralized as possible, and to offer you the possibility to like be in crypto, but also pay your daily stuff and actually have a life outside of crypto.
So there was no like crypto pizza, Bitcoin pizza situation with his friends because nobody could actually pay for anything.
No, they are always asking him like, "Hey, can you spot me for this time? I'll pay you when I take out my portfolio from Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever."
Yeah, friends had portfolios that were worth many multiples of his house, yet they're degenerating so hard that like every last little bit of fiat they just shoveled into crypto.
And that's kind of the gist of what you guys do, that you can basically set your crypto as collateral and get fiat and not necessarily lose your crypto in the process. Because, of course, when you set your crypto as collateral, there are certain risks to it, or like if you sell your crypto for fiat, you lose your crypto, right? So what you have today, what you get today in terms of fiat might be worth so much more in a couple of years. And what you guys do, basically, there's no risk of you losing your crypto other than, for example, a margin call. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah, basically.
Like DeFi is basically all over collateralized because of the volatility of crypto, right? And since it's all anonymized, you can't have like under collateralized loans. People just keep making spoof accounts and keep keep draining the treasury. So yeah, I think the typical ratio here is about 2 to 1. And once you start to fall to certain thresholds, like 180%, 150%, you start to get margin called. And before you reach a 1-to-1 ratio, you get automatically liquidated to preserve the global liquidity of the system. So there's no global shortfall event.
Basically, what we want to offer is a way for people to stay long on crypto and extract the value from that.
Yeah, because every time you sell off your crypto, if you want to use fiat, like say you have some gains and then you want to sell it off and like plow some fiat into something else, you now have to pay capital gains because you've actually swapped the asset, right? But with taking out a loan, you don't have to do that. You can stay long on the asset and without triggering a capital gains event.
And depending on when you are in the world, actually interest on loans is tax deductible.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the great thing here too is that interest rates are entirely determined by supply and demand of the use of the liquidity providers and the debtors on the protocol. So the more people providing liquidity and fewer there are taking out loans, the lower the interest rates are. The more people are taking out loans and there's fewer liquidity providers, the higher the interest rates go. So it's all just balanced essentially by supply and demand, or as known as utilization rates. And unlike traditional fiat, where it's set by the treasury, the central bank, and subject to many, many different political considerations. So as we've seen in the last 2-3 years with COVID, we've printed an obscene amount of fiat money, and now we've seen with the price of goods and everything else, that is those decisions are starting to come home to roost. So it's taking away the short-term political element of it that oftentimes is like the kind of monetary policy that's not seeing the forest for the trees, right?
And also another aspect to think about is how, because it's like we're not the first ones to provide loans. There are other parties which provide that. But as we've seen in the past period, the insane returns that they provide, like big percentages when you lend out money, eventually it kind of crashes. So that's another reason why we chose to do this.
Yeah, Celsius, Voyager, the BlockFi 7 problems. It seems like we're a decentralized protocol, and as much as it's easy to get high returns for a while, all these centralized entities were really just a middleman for all the decentralized platforms. So they're really using things like Aave and Compound and everything else, and Curve or whatnot, to try and chase yield. And they were degenning a bit too hard, a bit too close to the sun. And as it turns out, once the market corrected quite aggressively, those chickens came home to roost. But when you're just going directly to a decentralized protocol, assuming the engineering is correct and whatnot, then you won't have those issues because you don't have people trying to guarantee you an 8% return. That's what we've seen even with like algorithmic stable coins like UST, is that, and with the Anchor protocol, the commonality there was that they're always trying to guarantee you a fixed number of returns, 8% on Celsius or eye-watering 20% on Anchor. And I think what we've seen there is like trying to subordinate an entire protocol to some fixed number doesn't work in reality. It works for a while, but eventually something has to give, especially when the market starts to get choppy.
It works in the bull market, you know?
Yeah, it works in a bull market just fine. But bull markets don't last forever. And of course, there's crypto. And even though there's more liquidity than was here in the last two bull cycles, and so it's a bit more, not, the crashes aren't as dramatic. They're still, compared to like traditional asset classes like equities or bonds, it's still wildly volatile, right? And so the economics just did not square with the volatility of the system. And again, I think that's the folly of human beings trying to create a system where everything subordinates itself to a semi-arbitrary number of 20% or 8%. Eventually something has to give if that number is not supposed to change. It is not supposed to flex, right? So, of course, in this decentralized protocol, the interest rates, like I say, just change based on the utilization rates. It has the robustness to handle changes in liquidity, right?
And also it has a transparency for you to see how that is used, because you didn't know how Celsius was using the money, like in which protocols it was putting it or anything like that. As opposed to us, when you see like in the contracts, you'll kind of see where and how it's used, so you can plan according to that.
Yeah, Celsius was just an example of like greed overtaking the whole reason we have crypto in the first place, which is open transparency and flexibility and decentralization. And so it's a centralized protocol, protocol that occludes risks, that obfuscates it, because if you can't see exactly where they're putting everything. And for example, in any sort of lending protocol, we're going straight to it. You can see the smart contracts, you can see the depositions, right? So you know the health of the system by looking at the on-chain data. But if you have a centralized actor kind of occluding which wallets they're actually using, you don't actually know the state of their finances. As we found out, you don't actually find out until it's too late. And there's rumblings of Celsius having issues before they actually paused or halted redemptions. But, you know, they say where there's smoke, there's fire. And don't get me wrong, crypto has all sorts of FUD. But a lot of smart people that I respect in this space were all kind of like saying roughly the same thing. It's just like I've heard through the grapevine, and you know, not all influencers are created equal. Plenty of them get paid to spread FUD, as I found out recently. But pick the right ones, and all the ones I respected were saying, "Hey, just as a preventative measure, you might want to take your funds out of Celsius." Turns out that was true.
Sadly,
but I think like, you can look at it like a glass half full kind of thing too, in that this kind of thing had to happen. Like, God forbid this happened when the market cap of crypto was like 5 times what it is, or 6 or 10 times what it is now, right? The damage would have been so much more severe. And I think we need these kinds of events to remind everybody the value of decentralization and the value of having the flexibility in a protocol to handle changes in liquidity. And we kind of with Celsius, we got away with like those founding ideas of crypto and what it's about, because we were just trying to chase yield. And then the market and, you know, fate, shall we say, rudely reminded us.
Well, you guys dropped so many gems in the last few minutes. I completely spaced out and I just listened to you guys and just drop one gem after the other. And this is, for me, absolutely perfect. I get to actually listen and learn and not interfere. I have so many questions right now.
Well, I'll say this. I want to, like, I've never experienced, like, essentially, I wouldn't even call these black swan events. I mean, the way these protocols were designed, I didn't like, this didn't seem like a 5 Sigma or 6 Sigma event. this seemed like a very, very easy to have happen event, and even a modest correction. So this is something that was always going to have. But it makes me more bullish on decentralization and in general, and it sort of validates. And of course, of all the L1s, I think Cardano is the one that's actually most serious about decentralization when it comes to the blockchain trilemma. A lot of the other protocols in the top 10 on CoinMarketCap, they trade decentralization for more speed. And because you, as you know, with the blockchain trilemma, you can only pick two out of the three, being, of course, decentralization, scalability, or speed and security. Whereas Cardano tries to strike a more delicate balance between all three. Most of them just say, screw it, we're not going to worry about decentralization, and vroom, vroom, L1 go fast. And then, of course, like Solana, it just all of a sudden shuts off again, right? So I think it makes me, it was a rude reminder that decentralization is more important than a lot of people give it credit for. And so a lot of the people just trying to go for user experience forget that doing things the right way takes time, right?
And
so Solana, and it's all really great. Sorry?
That was the main reason why you decided to build on Cardano.
Yes, I personally like that more philosophical balance of the three between the blockchain trilemma, and we're trying the hard way about trying to have our cake and eat it too, but knowing that you can't just solve it by saying screw it to decentralization. It takes a longer approach, as we've seen, like with the scaling roadmap that Cardano has, and of course with Vassal around the fork, there are things, of course, like reference scripts and whatnot. So there are ways to do it. It just takes time, and that's the thing when it comes to like the degenning happy culture that we have in bull markets. That's not exactly something that gets put high on the priority list.
Yeah, for sure. And Victor, you compared MELD for a moment there with Celsius. Could you give us a bit more in-depth comparison and tell us what distinguishes MELD from protocols like Celsius? Like what makes MELD more unique in that respect?
Well, the biggest thing is that it's a decentralized protocol, right? Like Celsius is centralized, and that's a big difference, because it's you cannot have like we don't really play by the same rules in a sense, because once the rules for MELD are made and public, then everybody knows them and nobody can change them unless there's like a community vote or stuff like that. But that's a big difference. It's not like the CEO of MELD, like Ken, believes that this year BTC is going to go to 200 and he's going to 200,000. He's going to ape into some protocols just because of his personal belief. It's just like it will always go how the contract is made to go.
So there's actually there's a million things that separate a decentralized protocol like MELD from centralized ones. So for example, because of one of the things we talk about here in DeFi is what's called custodial risk. There's a whole bunch of people, there's thousands and thousands of people out there right now who can't redeem their funds from Celsius because they're locked in there to stop a bank run. That's exactly what it is. It's just a traditional bank run. Yeah. And so banks and centralized entities, when you read their terms of service, their EULAs, they say, hey, for the health of the protocol or our system, we can basically hold your funds hostage so that we don't experience bank run, which means they're under collateralized, right? And so that's why also sometimes you have to wait as long as 24 hours to get your funds redeemed. And sometimes in crypto, you only have an opportunity that shows up for a few minutes or a few hours. You want them instantly. In a decentralized protocol like MELD, you get them as fast as Cardano can process the transaction, redeem your funds, right? So you don't have your custodial risk isn't subject to the folly of human beings and their degen ways, or they're under collateralization or undercapitalization. So that's the custodial risk is only there insofar as there might be an error in the code itself or a problem with the smart contract. I guess you could look at that ways like that as an example of custodial risk, but you can more so subsume that into technical risk and how you want to taxonomize these risks, right? But traditional custodial risk just does not exist when everything is determined by the logic of the smart contracts holding all the collateral, right? So that you already don't have to worry about. There is, for the crypto to crypto, there's no KYC. So there is no application. It's instant. If you want to start becoming a liquidity provider for a crypto to crypto pair, then you're fine. Go ahead. So that's fine. Time to redeem funds again is pretty instant. We can expand to as many repayment options as we want to, conceivably in the future. There are no fees, pretty much, to beyond just spending MELD in order to take out a loan and whatnot. Protocol fees. You don't have to worry about the kind of dings you might get from like Celsius with their membership being like 0.5% to 2% or whatnot.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
The fees are like, if the fees change, then the fees will change because everybody that uses the protocol will decide that they should change, and they will decide based on very good and very detailed explained reasons, like why they should change, how they should change, what impact does it have on the protocol, why is it better, what are the problems, and all of those stuff. Like, it won't happen overnight without anybody knowing, and then you just wake up, hey, your fees are 10% larger for whatever reason or something.
Yeah, these centralized protocols all try and dissuade you from withdrawing. So they have like fees for that, or they have certain like weekly or monthly limits to how much of your capital you can pull back out and redeem, right? Whereas like a decentralized protocol doesn't care. As long as everything's over collateralized, you don't have to worry about a run on the bank. There's never a hole, right, left in the system, unless of course you have a global shortfall event. So,
and we also, like, one of the very important things for us when we provide this like loaning functionality is that we really want to avoid defaults or liquidations. So that's why we have 3 phases basically in which you are until you are liquidated. So we really want people to avoid people getting liquidated. So you get like warnings in case a margin call is happening, and very eventually, like after we warned 3 times, pay more from your loan or put more collateral, you get liquidated. So that's a thing that we really don't want to happen.
And sorry, Victor, and at what point do these warnings happen, or what sort of a percentage we're talking?
So I think for fiat to crypto, you can borrow a max of 50% of the crypto value. So you get 3 warnings until 80%. I think it was what was it, 66, 70, and 80%, and then you get liquidated once you go past that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but something along those lines, up to 100%.
Okay, got it. And since we're on the topic of loans, I would like to drill down a bit more in depth when it comes to loans with MELD. Could you give us a couple of examples, or maybe just go into a bit more detail when it comes to your loans? What kind of collateral are we talking? What I also read a bit something about your self-paying loans, and I also read that users can actually yield on their own loan, so they can actually earn from their loan. That's all very, very interesting. If you could maybe drill down a bit more for us.
Yeah, so the self-paying loan is not exactly new. It's basically what banks do, right? When you take out when you put your savings there, the bank doesn't just keep it there. It takes it and it puts it in other places, lends it out to people, and then makes money on that, right? Makes interest on that. So the self-paying loans are basically you put up your collateral, and instead of it staying there, it's used in different places to generate yield, and a part of that yield is used for paying back the part of your loan. So it's just putting your capital to work for you, basically.
From what I remember too, the Genius loan, which is the self-repaying loan, uses fees captured from DEX aggregators. Now, the exact mechanics, I can't drill down too deeply into, but as long as there's market activity, they can repay themselves. So presumably, if we go in a bear market and there's fewer people taking out loans and there's less DEX activity, then the timelines, like the white paper originally, I think envisioned like $100,000 loan repaying itself, its principal, in 3 to 6 years. Now, keep in mind that one of the caveats with the Genius loan too is that you pay a higher interest rate, right? So it's like a traditional mortgage looking at your repayment schedule. It's a balance of between like your interest and your principal, right? So you can look at it that way. So you are paying higher interest, but I think the more market activity there is, and just in terms of fees, the more aggressively it can repay itself.
Yeah,
I may have misinterpreted that, but
you basically, as like, if you have more opportunities, more places in which the cryptos can be used to generate yield, then it's better for you. If the market is not as active, obviously there won't be so many places, so it will take more time.
Okay, got it. And in terms of availability, so what are we talking? Can everybody take out a loan with you guys, or are you, to a certain extent, like geo and geopolitically limited?
Or crypto to crypto loans, anybody can take, because they're crypto to crypto loans.
Yeah, the protocol only just sees an address trying to make a transaction, whereas with crypto to fiat, it's a very different story. Because with fiat, you require KYC because we require banking partners to do that. So really, we just act as a facilitator to pull fiat from banks and transfer to yours when you're using a crypto to fiat loan, and back and forth. And so banks, by based on all regulation, have to know who they're dealing with, have to know the entity. They don't work in a world of anonymized actors.
Yeah, so they're basically two sides of the protocol. Crypto to crypto, anybody can do it. And then once you start doing fiat operations in any way, unfortunately, you do need to do KYC, and then you can do that stuff. And for the beginning, we concentrate on Europe and Asian markets, and that's where you'll most likely be first able to do fiat stuff with MELD. And eventually, we'll also go in the rest of the places.
Okay, got it. So now that we're on the topic, so where is MELD right now? What are some like recent developments that happened with you guys, and what is something that we could expect in the near future? So not necessarily on the line, but like what is something that we can expect from MELD in maybe July, and also what happened recently in the last couple of weeks? Something that you could highlight to the listeners.
I think both questions have the same answer, and that's the Akamon bridge.
Sorry?
You go, Victor?
Both questions have the same answer, and that's the Akamon bridge. A few months ago, we released the alpha testnet of the Akamon bridge. Now, a couple of days ago, we just started with the beta version, and soon we'll, I think, next month.
Basically, we started the beta. Akamon is, for the backing up, it used to be called Atomatic, which is our bridge to the Polygon network. So everybody has like a bridge directly to Ethereum, but we wanted to go to Polygon, where it seems a lot of Ethereum native activity is migrating to anyway. I think Uniswap v3 and Aave all voted, their communities voted to run on Polygon, where the fees are dramatically lower, right? And it's still a place that has a huge, deep pool of ERC20 assets. And a lot of us, I'm sure, beyond Cardano and Cardano native assets, I'm sure if you ask just about half of all the people you ask, who are the next biggest holdings you have outside of our ecosystem? Probably say Ethereum or Ethereum assets. And so I think my second biggest holding is Matic after Cardano and any Cardano native assets. So it seemed like the very logical place to bridge to, because that's where a lot of DeFi on Ethereum is moving to, right? And we wanted to expose Cardano to all that deep ERC20 liquidity, because that's the biggest. The Ethereum and its layer 2s or inside chains are all like the biggest place, the biggest constellation of DeFi in all of crypto right now. And so we have, if you hold any sort of assets over there, you can use them on Cardano to generate yield instead.
That's very cool. I'm playing around now with the testnet. It's very interesting. So you have MetaMask and Nami. I unfortunately have neither, but if I had Nami, I would definitely play around a little bit now and see what it's like. Do you have so what is your plan now with the testnet? How long do you plan on keeping it a testnet? Do you have currently sort of a community audit of sorts going around? Are people like playing around and giving you feedback? What's the yeah?
Yeah, we just started the beta on Friday, and myself, Victor, and another ambassador, Plutus Plumbus, also named Matt. We run the Discord, and that's where a lot of the feedback is being managed for the testnet. We learned a lot in alpha, and some of it was really ad hoc, and so Victor and Matt built some really good tools to make it more formalized to receive feedback for the beta version. And now we're a more well-oiled machine, taking in like thousands of responses in terms of feedback, of actual written feedback on top of the actual on-chain transactions people are undertaking in order to put the bridge through its paces. Now, we started the beta on Friday, but then on testnet, the Vassal hard fork happened, and as predicted, things broke.
Everything broke.
But broke for a good reason, because things obviously, after a dramatic change, hard fork like Vassal, things shouldn't exactly work smoothly, because you're shaking things up in quite a serious way. And so the reason they gave us 4 weeks to for a Vassal on the testnet is so that we can actually, everybody can change their modify their protocols accordingly in order to make them ready for mainnet.
Yeah. So just to give you a few numbers, there were, during the alpha testing period, there were almost 25,000 unique wallets that used the bridge, and approximately 300,000 transactions that happened in that period. And for beta, I think it will be more, probably.
Because now you've got a seasoned pool of existing testers, and we offer rewards for testing. And so you've got people who, and some of them just like testing things out and being part of like the ground floor of a new product. So we've got quite a stable of now more experienced testers who are better at giving feedback. And people who actually know how to use the protocol now are used to it from alpha. So a bit more seasoned than just working with the UI and putting through transactions. But I think before Fossil broke everything, the average transaction time was about 9 minutes. And we hope to improve that. So
yeah, something like that. In the alpha, alpha started with transactions taking maybe a few days, because everybody just piled in, and then almost at the end we got it down to about 9 minutes, and then we announced the rewards for the testers, and then everything went back to like 2 days processing time. So
now keep in mind, part of this is the behavior of the Polygon side, where again you could bid higher fees, right? So we thought about, hey, should we, because originally one of the most recurring pieces of feedback was, hey, the transaction fees in Matic are too high, can you bring them down? Like, sure. And that's what we did. But that also has a trade-off, like with all things in crypto, is that if you're not bidding up the amount of fees, you get put lower on the totem pole on the in line, right? So that had a trade-off there.
And we also didn't want to put the fees very low and then make like some unrealistic expectations that you don't pay literally anything when you want to bridge or anything like that. So
what kind of fees are we talking?
Recently, what was it, 3 Matic for the very first? I think we brought it down to 2 Matic after a few tweaks. This is on alpha.
Yeah, something like that, I think.
I have to go back and check where we put it for beta, but it's a bit of a balancing act, right? And maybe conceivably we can modify the protocol to set it so that the user can opt to decide if they want to pay more in order to get to the front of the line, because again, that's just the nature of how Ethereum and layer 2 Ethereum protocols are built, right? That's sort of a
discussion. I recall when Sunday launched and there was this congestion, this exact conversation kickstarted on Cardano as well. However, it was relatively quickly shut down as it doesn't really democratize decentralization. It's more of a pay-to-play type of thing. But as we know, Ethereum
here's the thing, on Cardano, you could still do that. From what I understand, even trying to put some transactions at the front of the line, it just comes down to tweaking the firewall. But I'm not that technical. I couldn't tell you for sure, but that's what I was hearing from people that I respect. So, I mean, it's not as if you can't still do that. It's just a matter of how the community views that kind of thing. So,
here at
Cardano, we're pretty rapidly democratic about things like fee markets. And so typically they generate a very strong immune response. Or just preferring some transactions over others, like certain script preferring certain smart contract addresses over others. I mean, it is a thing you can do if you're running a node, for better, for mostly for worse, but people can detect that.
Got it. Interesting. I didn't actually know that. Cool. Yeah, that's some very serious numbers in terms of testers. That's really cool. Congratulations. That really requires a dedicated community. So that's very, very cool. I want to go back to Vasil a little bit, if I may. I'm quite curious. What can we expect with MELD around Vasil? Will it impact you anyhow? And if yes, how so?
I mean, definitely, it's something like the bridge has obviously, like with Akamon, it's affected it. But I think one of the reasons we put Akamon first in the line of our products is because it would probably be the least affected by Vasil, and we wanted to just expose all the liquidity, whereas everything else that's just built around Cardano entirely would be more dramatically affected by it. And I remember sitting down with Johnny at Consensus, Johnny Nguyen over at IOG, and he's just like, yeah. I got to say, like, our lead engineer, it's a bit of a fan base here inside of IOG because we really like a lot of his pull requests. And a lot of the work, a lot of the manpower of our engineering staff is actually not spent on so much the MELD protocol earlier on. It was spent on Cardano and just trying to tweak it to make it better for everybody else, make it better for dApps to operate on it.
Yeah, it was spent on a lot of stuff. It was partially spent on building code for pushing it upstream to IOG. It was also spent, a lot of effort was spent and is still spent for Hachi, which is an automated security tool for evaluating smart contract security, which is not very known, but it's very much developed and very appreciated by a lot of technical people from IOG. The bridge, MELD.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So yes, it has affected everything else, although to the degree I can't say because I'm not part of the engineering team. But yeah, no, without question, Cardano's roadmap and scaling initiatives dramatically change the assumptions you work with when you're building any sort of tech.
Awesome. Thank you guys for answering.
And I mean, the changes that need to happen because, of course, and as we all know, things like reference scripts are extremely important for scalability and throughput, right? So, I mean, Cardano has, I think, 11 different scaling features in the pipe. So that's like we're only just getting started with the Vasil hard fork. But this is, again, going to come with a bit of a trade-off because every time one of these new ones gets implemented, things are going to break. And so we're going to have to go through that testnet period where it gets introduced on testnet because originally the Vasil was slated for the end of June. And a lot of the dApp developers we need some runway time here on the testnet, please and thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's why it got pushed back, and rightfully so. We should all be absolutely thrilled that it got pushed back because otherwise doing that was going to, let's just say, not a lot of things are going to be happening on Cardano for a few days or weeks right after Vasil would have got pushed straight to the mainnet. Everything would have broken just like they are now in testnet. Akamon broke, everybody else's stuff was going to break. I remember talking with a few engineers on other known projects at Consensus is like, yeah, there's no way Vasil's going to hit on mainnet at the end of June because really none of us dApp developers will have had any time to actually modify our code. It's a little bit, we're all a little bit confused about that one. And thankfully they listen to reason and we'll give you guys 4 weeks. So
yeah, they did very good because 1 hour afterwards, I started going through stuff and everything was broken. Like Eternal wasn't working, Sunday Swap was not working on testnet. I think Wing Riders also either. So yeah, it's good to have time.
Imagine if that was Vasil mainnet at the end of June. Like basically Cardano would just stop working for right now. And basically all the dApps on Cardano, would just basically stop working. We'll just call a spade a spade. We got to be honest about it.
Because ultimately, the best thing that could have happened was getting it postponed.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sort of the four front-facing guys, but you talk with anybody who's actually an engineer on any dApp protocol, and they'll give you a much more full-throated response on that one.
Jesus. But it's good. They always do end up listening to the community anyway, so it doesn't come as a shock.
They do the weekly calls, do the SBO calls, and if you've actually ever listened in on some of those, you'll hear them, they can get quite vocal, cordial, but vocal And the community is they're smart people. Like I'd say the average community member in Cardano is quite technical and quite intelligent, so they're able to give very good feedback to IOG, and so we're lucky for that. And even though sometimes the relationship can seem like it could be borderline acrimonious, at the end it gets resolved because we're good at, I think, at the end of the day, listening to each other.
Yeah, we don't actually give enough credit to the SPOs, and in reality, they're the ones doing the biggest service to Cardano, and they're never really the focus. It's more the dApps and the DeFi projects, but the SPOs kind of get overlooked. But in reality, they are the ones doing the grunt work for the rest of us.
Yeah, well, they basically are the protocol if you think about it.
Yeah.
Shout out to all you SPOs here who are listening. Shout out to Hart. Anybody else?
Absolutely. Cool. Guys, I need to go into a bit of a shittier topic, but it does require transparency. Everyone I have on these spaces, I need to ask. Could you tell us a bit more about the backside of MELD in terms of financing? Who are some of your main backers? Basically, if there were a Celsius kind of situation, I understand that all the loans are locked in a smart contract. So even if something does happen to MELD, the funds are safe. But I'm just wondering basically about what are the main income streams for MELD? What are your main backers? What is something that
MELD
keeps
Labs
you going?
is the company and not MELD the protocol, right?
Yeah, there's a differentiation there.
Yeah.
I mean the company, but we could also split it into more detail.
I suppose. Yeah. Well, I mean, as MELD Labs is like everybody after the Flick 2 or Flick TO or whatever situation happened, everybody started like, hey, like DMing me on Discord, is MELD going to be all right? I'm like, yeah, we're fine because we didn't try and hold all our funds in an extremely volatile asset class. We raised our private sale round is raised in traditional USD. And so we raised millions and millions of dollars and we're sitting on that as our war chest. So we're fully funded for years. So
that's really good to know.
Yeah, the volatility of the crypto market literally made no difference towards our financing. Whether it was the bull market kept going or not, we would have been sitting on the same pile of USD that we raised in our private round.
You make it so simple.
It really was that simple. Just, don't be a Yahoo about, I guess, raising funds. And, it's traditional fiat's way less volatile than sitting on crypto. And if you're like trying to go long after when the macro friends say everything otherwise, you're playing with fire, I suppose. So no, we just our funding was traditional and safe. There's no reason to.
Speaking of raising funds,
upend. Sorry.
Speaking of raising funds, you guys, I think you were the first ISPO, right?
Oh yeah, in terms of the ISPO, all that ADA hasn't been touched. That's basically all that ADA that was raised for the ISPO is earmarked for the MELD Foundation for the MELD DAO.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a war chest. That's basically going to bootstrap the community war chest, the treasury for that side of things. Like there's the MELD treasury, like there's the treasury for the MELD tokens, but there's also a treasury of ADA that was all raised in the ISPO. We haven't touched any of it.
Yeah, it's actually now, I don't know if it's done already, but the process has definitely started to form a DAO in Switzerland and to give custody of those funds to it.
Yep.
Okay, I was just about to ask, what's the status on the DAO?
Yeah, the ISPO just was basically a way of having people exchange their ADA for MELD tokens to bootstrap the protocol, but theoretically, a lot of that ADA you gave up is really in the custody of now, or going to be in the custody of those same MELD holders. So in a roundabout way, that ADA kind of came back to you guys anyway. So it was a massive ISPO. I mean, at one point, there was over $1 billion worth of ADA delegated to it. So it was wild. We pinched ourselves like nobody expected it to be this successful.
Was that a billion with a B?
Yes, it was. Because like at one point the price of ADA hit $3 and USD. So it's just like, oh, like that was at Cardano's highest valuation ever. So that's why that number was able to be quite dramatic when you evaluate it in USD.
Yeah, and it also helped a lot that we were the first because you didn't have where else to go for an ISPO. So
yeah, I think it helped that being domiciled in somewhere other than the United States, gave us a bit more cover, I suppose, or latitude. So others tried like played around the idea, but it's like we're incorporated in the United States, and so I'm not sure if we want to try that.
Yeah, Sunday
It's a
Swap
really
was
cool
supposed
model.
to do the first ISPO, but they, from what I remember, like a bit before they actually started, somebody apparently just randomly said, "Hey, have we thought about the legal implications of this?" And they were like, "Nope," and they just
Well,
then
eventually the
rethought
answer,
stuff.
not like I don't want to say like they're cavalier or anything. The answer eventually became yep, right? And so because I don't know their early history, so I don't want to put like words in like their mouth or anything or like speak for them. But yeah, it was actually like Sunday Swap had actually been, I think, the first one to publicly like announce the idea or play around with it. It wasn't us.
Which
And
was
then, but they're domiciled in the United States, whereas we're not.
yeah.
I think that was just the very the very short and easy answer as to why we felt comfortable going forward with an ISPO and they didn't. Otherwise, they would have been the first, not us.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so you guys sound pretty good and pretty safe for the coming years. And actually, for a moment, you were the first Cardano crypto unicorn with a billion dollar valuation.
Yeah, on day one of token drop. Yes, that was
Yeah.
interesting. That was very funny to watch. And it's just like, the MELD token price is worth more than 1 ADA right now, and 1 ADA is worth a little bit more than 1 USD right now. It's an interesting situation to be in, you know? So not that like it really made a difference to any of us over here at MELD, because as staff, we have a 9-month lockup period anyway. So it's not as if, that made a difference to us that our MELD wasn't going anywhere. So, but it was kind of funny to see on paper. It's like, yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but I'm not going to get used to it because it's irrelevant. Can't do anything, right? So
it was fun to see still on the.
it was fun to see. Yeah.
I'm sure. So what are some options with the MELD token right now? So where are some places where you can get a MELD token, and what is as far as I remember, you still have a staking platform, or was it a staking platform where you can provide liquidity? And I think there was a 9-month lockup also. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's a 6 months and a 12-month option just to stake in the meantime. And because right now, I think the biggest thing we want to be able to use MELD tokens for in the near future, of course, is to pay fees in the Akamon bridge. Because that, of course, like we said, touched on earlier, is the first product we want to roll out. Then after that, it's going to be C2C lending. So, but I mean, like, again, the reason that order was the way it was is because C2C was far more dependent on the state of Cardano itself and how its scaling went. Whereas like Akamon was less sensitive to those changes. So we figured we could build Akamon with more certainty in the near future than we could with everything else, and that's why it got put to the front of the line.
So is that then the planned utility for the MELD token to be used as fees in the transactions?
Yeah, it's a governance token, but yes, the main thing that MELD is used for is basically for fees, and that's taking a loan or paying on transactions on the Akamon bridge. And that in turn goes into like 40% of those fees go towards people who stake their MELD tokens.
Which is used for protection in case of Black Swan events.
Yep.
Got it. Very cool.
And
very, very cool. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that for the staking, it's a 6 or 12 month staking, but the 12 months can't be done anymore. It ended on March 1st. And the 6-month staking, if anybody wants to stake MELD, that's still open until September 1st. And you can do it on the MELD app, which is app.meld.com.
Yeah, the 6-month staking option offers you 12% additional MELD on top of whatever your principal is.
12% APY.
Yeah. So it's just one lump sum. Basically, just essentially just do 1 point per year, right? So if it's a 6-month staking, essentially just multiply your principal by 1.06, and then you'll get the number you end up with at the end of the 6-month term. Very simple.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's not a full year. I'm on it now, and I'm having a look. And you just have Nami. Do you guys have any intentions of adding any more Cardano wallets?
We do.
We do. But right now, with only staking available and the bridge still going through testnet, we have been, in the back round, we have been testing at the bridge with other wallets to interface with it. But I don't think we've, other than, like, obviously right now in the testnet, it's just Nami and MetaMask, obviously, for the Polygon side. excuse me. But we have been tweaking around some other ones. But I don't think anything. We have mentioned that we do plan on supporting Eternal eventually. But right now, without like, it hasn't been as high as a priority because right now the main feature of the interaction you have on the main net is just staking right now, right? So, but yes, we do plan on supporting far more wallets in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It just doesn't need to be that way right now.
I've come to realize that it's kind of the simplest of barriers of entry for some users, because right now we have, I would say, 5 really serious wallets on Cardano, and people are split to a certain extent. I think probably Nami still has the most users, and then maybe Eternal, and then I guess Jiro and Flint. But yeah, if you're using one of them and not the other, not having your wallet for certain apps is kind of, it's a bit of a silly barrier of entry. Like it was a couple of months ago, but I think I didn't stake for a full year with MELD because I'm using Eternal and I just couldn't be bothered to make Nami.
I don't fault you for that.
Yeah. It's normal.
Yep. No, I understand. Like each of us has like, God knows, I use, DApp connectors aside. I no longer use Roy because that was earlier before all the other ones, newer ones were mature. But Roy aside, I've used Daedalus, Nami, and Flint, I think. So those are the ones I use for different reasons.
Yeah.
I use them for different reasons. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, cool, guys. I'm very curious about your existing, so current and potential future partnerships you have. I think you have quite a big list. If you could maybe give us the main ones and maybe some upcoming ones, if that's not company secret.
I'm not sure if we really are. Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of upcoming ones we can announce here public on the space. That's like usually there's a whole like build-up campaign, like announcement for that. It's we submit it to the writing and parts of the marketing team to do that. So we're not going to just drop it on your head casually in one of these spaces. Unfortunately for everybody here, it's nice to get a little of that like advance notice, but it wouldn't be something we just like casually like say, oh, by the way, and then marketing would be like, hey, what the hell?
I think we also took a bit of a slowdown in the directions of partnerships because we do have quite a few until now, and we want to focus on actually doing everything else and actually, like making stuff happen.
Yeah, and bandwidth is limited, right? So most of our energies are concentrated on Akamon right now, as you can see with like the test net. Like those of us like managing the Discord, we're going through feedback, we're talking with engineering, and just saying, hey, these are things we've noticed a lot of, and so that's really occupying a lot of our bandwidth, both on the more front-facing people like us, but also engineering. But yeah, like taking on new partnerships right now would just be like bandwidth that we probably don't have. I think there's some of the background, but what you might see in the future is more fiat-focused ones, because of like the banking side of like the fiat side of things, the crypto to fiat, just to be able to facilitate ease of use on that side of things. Because I think like most of the partnerships we have are mostly like main chain focused, right? And they don't really deal with that side of the stack. So that's about as like specific I can be. But I haven't checked exactly on what the partnership pipeline is. Like Lord knows, like a lot of the times we don't know about it until like someone else announces it. Because it's like we're not the people who will actually create partnerships per se. Yusuf does that, and so I think Lawrence does a lot of talking. Although ones we know about are the ones that we were responsible. So, for example, Maladex, you lay at the feet of Victor over here for getting that going. And sometimes I'll start conversations, or someone will reach out to me, and I'll have a conversation with them. And so I know about it by dint of me being the one having started getting that ball rolling. But those are the ones I know about because I'm intimately involved in them, right? But
yeah, I actually apologize. It took me far too long, but I actually didn't ask you guys what is your particular role within MELD.
Yeah. Even though we have formal titles, I'd say lots and lots of hats, depending on the day.
Yeah,
and the week.
Technically, for example, I'm a community manager, but I do a lot of stuff which are not exactly in that idea. So yeah, that's my title, community manager.
My formal roles are community and governance, but all the other things that happen beyond that are tend to take up a lot of bandwidth. I'll say, and they'll happen very, very quickly. Someone will need to. This thing will come up, and whoever's aptitudes or skills best match it, that'll be the person. So I found myself dealing a lot with, like, for example, lately CNFTCon, and just trying to plan out and budget and deal with the logistics of that. I wouldn't put that under community or governance, but it's something that needs to be done, and I'm at the front of that. So because I'm just managing those relationships and pulling for that, because I'm also one of the people who also thinks about its taxonomy of the utility of our NFTs, and I guess that would put me in a decent position to be at the conference dealing with NFTs. So yeah, that's just a lot of it is responding to whatever comes up, because like in startup culture, like you have certain bodies and a lot of needs, and you just need to really be able to operate quickly and on the fly, right?
Got it.
So yeah, that's my sort of 2-minute answer on that one.
Yeah, and in terms of partnerships, when it comes to fiat and so this more traditional banking, that's a completely different kettle of fish than the partnerships on Cardano and in crypto in general. How do you go about that? As far as I understand, there's a lot more formalities to it, and I'm assuming you have an entirely dedicated team for it.
The TradFi world is very different, and so I think a lot of those relationships are managed by our CFO, Patrick, because he's a TradFi, he's a banking guy, so he speaks that language. So that's definitely his wheelhouse. So we're talking with more traditional world of banking. It's probably Patrick who's leading a lot of those conversations, but he's not a very public-facing guy in terms of like these like spaces or whatnot, and he's not very active on social media. But he was with us at Consensus, and in fact, he's one of the people who came to the Cardano community event over in the east side of Austin. That was a lot of fun, and Patrick had a great time. Some people got to meet our CFO there. I know. I think Cinnamon Venom was there, so a few others. And so yeah, it was actually a great time. It's probably like my favorite.
I like how you're talking about him, like as it was like a really a big deal that he came out in public and was seen by people. It's like
I wouldn't even say that. Like he's over in Europe doing his thing, but like when you're bringing a team like to Consensus, you want like a well-rounded stable of people, and your CFO is definitely an important person, especially when you're dealing with like trying to build relationships, right? Because he's the most well-versed in the subject of banking, because of the world he comes from, right? So and Patrick's just an awesome dude all around, and like you could talk with him about TradFi for days on end.
Did you guys have a chance to meet the MuesliSwap team in Austin?
Briefly, when it was the Cardano, I think the Wednesday night event at the outside of the convention center, how we had the wraparound thing, and MELD sponsored the bull. And I remember seeing a cluster of like 10 MuesliSwap guys. I was sort of joking about the Milkomeda bridge thing and messing around with the Emule token and getting a real first-hand experience with the most degen-y shit possible in DeFi.
Yeah, it was quite something those few days.
Yes, it was interesting. So learned a lot by dint of first-hand experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, MuesliSwap, for facilitating that for me. Could have done it without you guys.
Honestly, it makes a world of difference. And in July, we're going to be properly launching. So our V2, nice. We did launch the first pool a couple of days ago, but in July, we do aim to finalize V2 and have a full-on hybrid DEX. And the Milkomeda experience was really priceless in terms of preparing the liquidity pools and the yield farming for the mainnet, basically. So
if I could just offer one suggestion, and I've gone on this rant on Twitter Spaces before, if we could reduce the number of protocols on Cardano that have some sort of dairy related theme, that'd be great. Because our CMO looked at your shirts with like the bowl of looking like dairy there, and he was speaking to you guys as if he thought you guys were Sunday Swap for a good like 3 minutes until you corrected him.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback as well in terms of the name, because Muesli is a very German-speaking thing. I think by now it's a global thing, but I think quite a lot of Americans struggled at first.
Yeah.
We contemplated being oatmeal swap for a moment, and I think 1st of April, for April Fools, we dabbled with the idea of fondue swap, but we ended up not doing it. But yeah, it's really something that we considered. But as we grow now, the more you grow, the harder it gets to rebrand drastically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's Sunday Swap, there's MuesliSwap with the milk token, there's Macomada. It was just like, it was just getting like, okay, who's tokening what protocol again? And
right, and there's nothing for vegans. There's no like oat milk swap or anything.
Yeah, no almond milk swap or anything.
Yeah, even better. Okay, guys, awesome. You dropped some amazing gems in this chat. I do have one final question before we slide into a bit of Q&A, if that's fine. Could you give us some highlights to expect, like by the end of this year for MELD? So, other than Akamon going live on mainnet, is there going to be anything else?
I mean, we're aiming to try and release C2C in Q4, but again, anything can happen there with the changing of the L1. So, we like to do things the Cardano way, in that if we'd rather go slow and correct than fast and YOLO. So, and I think that's the whole reason a lot of people are attracted to Cardano in the first place, is doing things the more rigorous and correct way. And if we feel like enough has changed it on the L1 that necessitates a review of our current design assumptions, then we will almost always do that. So, I tentatively want to say C2C for Q4, but if the nature and if just basically the state of Cardano itself changes in a way that makes us reevaluate those design assumptions, we will adjust accordingly. And I say that in a good way. I mean, Cardano needs to keep scaling and keep doing better, so we always want that. But even a lot of times, even best laid plans and whatnot, when you're doing development, now, as anybody here who's ever written code knows, it's like you can plan for only so much, but until you actually get to start messing with, the preview, the build, it's like, oh, I didn't consider that. Oh, this isn't the behavior I expected and whatnot. So nothing ever survives. I don't think a whole stable of assumptions survives going into first preliminary testing, right? But you want that. You want to be able to break things and realize that you're going through a thorough round of corrections.
Yeah, I mean, better to realize your mistakes early on than have someone else realize it for you, and even worse.
Well, I mean, we had a near miss with MinSwap and Wing Riders discovering that smart contract vulnerability, right? So,
yeah, for example,
I like to say, look, I like to point something out. Something interesting is that Cardano is like the UTXO model's better suited for order book, like you guys are, right? And so I think a lot of how do I phrase this? A lot of the hype around an ecosystem's DeFi lives and dies by the TVL numbers. But if for example you guys and Maladex are much more or basically order book based, that's going to have very understated TVL numbers. Even though on Cardano the order book design pattern is actually much more suitable for it. So I think that'll be kind of interesting. I think we all need to challenge existing narratives about when AMM is better suited and when it isn't, right? And if we can do order book, which is inherently a more efficient design than AMM anyway, better than an account model can, then I think we should let everybody, especially outside of Cardano, know that. So yeah, it's just me thinking out loud about the way we're doing things. As I understand it, it's Q&A time now.
Yeah.
Did we lose him, or maybe he doesn't realize he's still muted?
No.
Announced in advance at the beginning of the space. My phone managed to freeze, but it was very short. So it was very short. So I caught most of what you said. And it's very interesting.
And the MELD account just got rugged, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I mean,
all the official accounts are going.
I don't know. I kind of feel like it comes down to user interface and experience. I think the order book, it has its enormous advantages, but it's simply it doesn't cater to that many users in terms of simplicity. And that's why I think the AMM has its benefits and advantages. But hey, this is why we're gonna have both on MuesliSwap. So it's gonna
choice is always the best thing for users.
Sorry?
Having choice, having like a deep pool of choices for both is always the best for the end user.
Exactly. So I do get the benefits of both. Just a quick shout out to everyone that wants to ask a question. We're going to have a Q&A very, very soon. So I do see your requests and you're going to get a chance in a couple of minutes. Don't worry about it. Yeah, okay. I do have one little piece of information before we switch. As you know, we did drop our first liquidity pool the other day with Milk, and soon many other will follow. I do believe MELD will actually be the first one. I think tomorrow, if the development team doesn't kill me for saying this, but I think actually MELD will be the first liquidity pool that we drop tomorrow. So I think that's also interesting for you guys, so you get this information now. Yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. If you guys are good, then I think we can jump into Q&A.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And sorry for freezing up again. I really think I need a new phone. I can't continue like this, that I freeze up every single Twitter space. Cool. Guys, send over your requests and you will get a chance to ask Matt and Victor any MELD-related questions. You can also ask me, but I am not at liberty to say too much about what's going on in MuesliSwap. I do have to ask everyone that is here to have a look at our Catalyst proposals. I shared today on Twitter a little thread with all of our proposals that we're going to be asking for funding. So we're happy to hear your reviews and thoughts and assessments before voting begins.
Yeah, I made sure to retweet that stuff on the MELD account when I saw it. That was cool.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're all in this together.
We really are, aren't we? That's the thing about Cardano. So I had so many requests during the call, and now there's no one when they actually have a chance to ask.
Or maybe you don't see them.
That request function again, boys and girls.
Or maybe you just answered all the questions while you were talking.
That would be something very special.
Oh, I do have one question. Could you give... okay, we have a question. That's probably more interesting than my question. All right. Blockjock. I'm adding you. So wait, was it Blockjock? Yeah, Blockjock. You are now a speaker.
You give it a second for a session change. Usually when someone goes from like listener to speaker, it takes a second.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're with us.
There we go.
Hey.
How you doing, Jim?
Hey.
Hey, man.
Took a minute to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really cool announcement, man, that you guys are doing that with my MELD token. I was wondering what I was going to do with my excess amount of MELD that was sitting in a wallet that was not part of the 6 or 12. So it looks like I will be able to take and access a little APY from that. That'll be amazing. So the question is, and this is for Matt and Victor, is Victor going to be showing his face at the CNFTCon along with Matt? That's my first question.
I don't know. Matt is the NFT guy. I am more in other directions. So I don't know. Maybe.
I've been lobbying, actually. I really want to get, what was it? Matt Tristan, Plutus Plumbus, as you've seen on our Discord. He actually planned on going to CNFTCon even before we decided at MELD to go to CNFTCon. But Nick Torres over at the Ergo event, I was like, hey, I'm from CNFTCon and make a pitch. And I started looking into it and I'm like, this is actually a great idea. And so, yeah, the Ergo event was great. Cinnamon Bun here was at that thing. Maybe I think TCT might have been there. A few people here were there and it was a good time. And yeah, and then I started looking into it. It's like, we should go to this. In fact, we will go to this. And I know, if anything, you're going to see Plutus Plumbus there along with me and possibly one other person, I think. It might be 3 of us. It's not going to exactly be the posse that Consensus had, but it doesn't need that. So,
well, very good. Because I wanted to make sure because freeloaders will be bringing their T-shirt gun, and I need some people to go along. on some overhead shots. And I was hoping maybe Victor, I had this idea because of his PFP that he could go long. I know Matt can. I've met him. But I was just hoping maybe we could get that going as well.
Just get me in the backfield there.
Yeah, absolutely. I got like just maybe a cross pattern or something like that. We'll work it out. I think we'll be able to do something along those lines. Yeah, absolutely. As long as we don't hit anybody in the head, we'll be fine. It's my only concern. The other part of that is that, and this is more of a statement more than anything, because I've been a MELD supporter since the beginning, before I actually met Matt and Victor. But the narrative is really changing quite nicely surrounding MELD. In that whole scenario around the ISPO and how much money they had, and then it's almost like they disappeared for a minute, and what are they doing, and all this different stuff, right? And I contend that if you give out all your information about your project, at every moment that you possibly can, you have nothing kept back to surprise your customers when you bring the project live. And it's important that you continue to keep doing that, so it's nice that Muesli's doing what they're doing and iterating, but and the fact that they're launched. But I'm glad that MELD has taken that tact surrounding that.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it was like it gave me a lot of like a warm fuzzy feeling when Johnny said, like, again, highest pull requests on the Cardano repository are well received over at IOG's engineering, and I'm like, damn right they are. So but like I say, we want to do things the right way, and that means like making sure both our protocol and Cardano are more in sync. In order to facilitate that, we will do that, and we'll basically tune our marketing accordingly. So I'm of the idea of like engineering first and the marketing is subordinated to that, not the other way around.
Yeah, and engineering also spends a lot of time on on R&D. So from time to time, they're just like, hey, this is interesting. Maybe we can research more in that direction. And then they think of something weird.
But Victor and I are kind of biased on that regard because we both come from like a development background, right? So naturally, we'll be like, product and code first kind of people. At least that's our bias. But that wouldn't be surprising, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is imperative, really. It's like Emmanuel having a coding background as well and being able to deliver a message that explains at a higher level and also, of course, towards the end user, such as myself, where most of the real high level stuff I can sit and listen to, but I'm absorbing maybe 30% of it, and
I'm still like that too. I need to revert. Yeah, I need to eke out more time to try and go through the Plutus Pioneers program or something. But as far as like the front-facing people, I'd say the best person to talk about that is Plutus Plumbus is Matt, because he's actually been through that program and he's really well versed. Like someone who's not on it, like for anybody who's not on an engineering team that is like fluent in Cardano, he'd be it because he's an ambassador. And again, was part of the Discord team with us, but he knows his shit pretty well and he's getting better every day. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. So yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Keep working, keep the head down, and keep driving towards.
Thank you for the kind words as always, Jim. Same.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Also, just shout out to freeloaders.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Cool project.
Thanks.
Cheers,
Mark. Appreciate that very much. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
I love it. Absolutely.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Darko, next up. Officially Darko.
Darko.
I see there's a history to this, or what?
Darko is a very old community member of ours since, I think, if not from the start of the ISPO, a bit before of the ISPO, one of the early supporters of ours.
I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say.
Hello?
Yeah, you're with us,
okay.
Darko.
I wasn't sure for a second. Hi.
Hey.
I have a question towards the loan situation that's going to happen on MELD. And I was thinking, so you're building now the Akamon bridge, right? So you're going to get assets from Polygon to MELD, like wrapped like M-Poly or M-Matic and all this stuff. As I remember correctly, it's going to happen with Bitcoin and Ethereum too, if I'm not wrong. And my question is this: will we be able to actually borrow fiat against those wrapped assets too?
Theoretically,
Yes.
yeah.
Then the other question is,
that's why we.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the other question is will it also be like will it be a normal loan, or will it be like a genius loan, where it like pays itself off?
I think you will have.
To be honest, I can't remember with the Genius loan. I mean, its mechanics are far more based on, again, the nature of the crypto side. Like, again, it captures a bit of the trading fees from DEX aggregators. So I can't answer that to you with full confidence that a Genius loan will come immediately in fiat form. I think it will definitely start in crypto to crypto form, and then maybe evolve into fiat form. But I could be wrong on that one.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I guess it's too soon for all the things. I was just wondering, how risky that actually would be. We see what's happening in the markets and all the crazy stuff, and so I was wondering how risky it's actually going to be when you take an asset from a different chain and you put it there and you try to earn yield on it in the background. So I want to go into that direction to find out, if how risky it's going to be. But
as long as you don't have like some weird DPEG event like ST ETH, where the wrapped version of the asset was actually trading at a discount to the regular version, the valuation should be the same. So whether or not you have a wrapped version of ETH or your ETH itself, the price should be the same. Because really, what you're just doing is locking the original asset on its native chain and essentially just minting a new one whole cloth. And the thing that establishes that sort of relationship is that you're not double spending, and that the smart contract on the originating chain is unviable, inviolable words. So essentially, you just don't try and create a new asset whole cloth without backing it, essentially collateralizing it from the original locked one on the other side, right? So in theory, that's why typically wrapped ones trade at the exact same price as the non-wrapped version, because essentially they're just they are backed by the original asset on its native chain, right? Mm-hmm. So it is, assuming there's no again, as we've seen, bridge hacks are a thing. Providing there's no bridge hacks and people have faith in the bridge, then they trade at the same value. So your margin call would happen at the exact same price point, assuming no DPEGs if you were using the unwrapped original asset itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That makes sense. That's actually something I'm really afraid of, that the bridge or something. Cardano so far hasn't been hacked, but there was not enough time to do things.
Yeah, well, Cardano, we were still building stuff out, exactly. Right? So I mean, yeah, we want to do things the right way, in the correct way, in the thorough way. So
I can.
That keeps us up at night too. It's a bridge, right? We all know the biggest vulnerabilities have traditionally all been bridge protocols. So we're keenly aware of that.
I can assure you that the engineering team is anxiously looking at every hack that has been happening in the past period. Every time I go, what happens, and I go to the internal chat, there's somebody sharing it there and saying hey, this happened. Let's take a look.
Oh, that's amazing. This is something where MELD again, it has the potential. Everybody that spends some time with MELD knows it has the potential to become a multi-trillion-dollar application, because everything is going to be via smart contracts, and there's not going to be anybody through DeFi. Right? And so I can really capture freaking trillions of dollars. And so this little, the stuff, the hacks and everything that can happen, this makes me very, very nervous, but it's good to hear that you guys are also very nervous about that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, again, we're at the end of the day, be it formal verification or not, you could still incidentally program in through just an oversight. I mean, coding's hard. You can on any, whether it be Cardano or anything else, you could still end up leaving vulnerabilities behind, as we saw in the original MuesliSwap smart contract. Cardano's not immune to that, and we always have to have that kind of perspective. We always have to have that realness about ourselves, and not trying to get high on our own supply. Yes, we like Cardano because it's a much more thorough and thought out system, we think. But at the end of the day, it's whether or not it's written in Haskell or not, it's still you can have bugs and vulnerabilities in any code base.
Cool.
That's a factor That's a factor that is common across code itself, right?
Yeah.
Some are better than others. I wouldn't try to write DeFi in JavaScript.
Yeah, that would be like a little risky play. Okay, then a final question. I guess you are like now. Are you or have you been like part of the team since the beginning? Like you and Victor?
Well, we started out as ambassadors. Victor's still an ambassador, but I ended up leaving my job of 9.5 years and started working at MELD full time back on December 1st of last year.
Congrats to that. Love it. I love it that you started like as an ambassador and just like, you know what, now I'm joining them full time. I love that. How is it going there actually?
Well, it's been a crazy ride. What can I say? It's been
Nice.
I'm having a lot of fun, and it's you just learn a lot being right there in the seat. I mean, all of us here are just doing things like for the first time on Cardano, right? So we're all kind of like, I feel like we're at those things we'll talk about in 5 or 10 years times. Like, remember those early days when we couldn't possibly imagine we'd be where we are now, like kind of thing. So just enjoying the ride, I guess.
Exciting. So like, yeah, cool. I don't want to take any more time up. So thank you for the question. Sorry for the answers. Anyways, like, have a nice day.
It's happy to hear from you, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darko. Hvala, Darko.
Hvala.
Okay. Emmanuel is with us now. Thank you guys for your time and answering all of these questions. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having us so far.
Yeah. It's very rare that we are on the other end.
On the other side.
These places.
Yeah. Normally it's us being in your spot and we're doing this. So it's kind of funny to be on the other side sometimes.
Yeah, next week it's going to be the other way around, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. It is with you guys. And in fact, we're doing one tomorrow with Sin Futures. So, it's spaces as far as the eye can see.
Nice. Looking forward. Manuel, you're with us. You're just on mute.
Yeah, I'm right here with you guys. It's a good session you guys have going today. Quite a lot to learn from the MELD team. So my main question was around the fact that MELD, in a way, I think earlier you mentioned, would be interfacing with various banks and all of that. My main concern was more like, what are the current arrangements around identity solutions from the MELD project as a whole, like given how it's focused on decentralization and Cardano has, like, say, the Italo Prism stack going on. Are there any active arrangements to at least protect the agency of the identity of their users using these technologies, or are they looking into other identity solutions, especially when it comes to interface with these banks or entities that connect to the MELD protocol from the traditional finance space? That was my main question mark there. And then, if anything, the second thing was mainly how soon can we get a more detailed what was the name specification of the Akamon bridge? Because I read through there was this document that came out like a month or two ago. Yeah, there really
wasn't. Want a more bigger one. That was the alpha one. We actually released the beta white paper, I think 2 weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
And that thing's 18 pages. So yeah, just go back in some of our Discord announcements on the announcements channel. You'll find it, and it's an 18-page document, and that's way more meaty and substantial.
Nice.
So
awesome.
That's your answer for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm gonna take a dive and see, because I'm really curious on like what steps you guys are taking that's maybe more different or cutting edge from everyone else and all of that. But yeah, just for the main question, thank you.
So to quickly answer that and then come back to your question about identity and fiat. Like basically the rollout plan for Akamon is to make it gradually more and more decentralized. So the alpha testnet was like us, just interacting with like a wallet address, right? Which is considered an anti-pattern. And then now beta is using about 5 nodes, I think. So it is decentralized, but quite centralized, but not just like, hey, send funds to this address. It do things magic, So it's more so do stuff with more than one node doing it, so to speak. And like basically managing the protocol. And eventually we want to expand the number of nodes to be more like, not because right now it's like it's closed. We select who the node operators are right now with the current beta. This very small number of validators, but we eventually want to make it like Cardano, where anybody can spool up a node start earning fees by being a node operator, just like they do with Cardano, right? So essentially, we want to make it so that there's no barrier to entry to be in line with the ethos of how Cardano works. But of course, that's going to take time and effort and engineering resources. So want to make sure we just go. And again, it's a bridge protocol, so we really want to be careful with that one.
A lot of testing.
Yeah, and as far as the identity goes, you only have to do KYC on the fiat side of things, but we're kind of limited in that we have to use services that banks are used to. Like, it'd be cool in the future that more banks become used to using something like Atala Prism or IMX, but they have to be okay with that. And right now they're sort of like, we're going to go what we know, because we know there's security here, there's familiarity here. Oops, excuse me, I almost dropped my phone. And so we have to, because the banks, we want to get them to, and it's already hard to get banks to cooperate sometimes, in this world. So, and I mean, they're banks, right? So we have to sort of play to their tune. I mean, a lot of the systems that you currently use for identity, like, when you're trying to do KYC with your exchange, you'll scan your passport, and there's all these companies that they just pay fees to do that for them, right? So, I mean, our crypto to fiat side would be probably very similar to how we used doing KYC on a centralized exchange.
Yeah, and it's also not necessarily that that's their preference. It's mainly regulation. Like, it's not like them being assholes. It's those are the rules that are currently laid out.
We would like to see a future where KYC is done with blockchain native solutions like Atala Prism or IMX, but that's a ways off. I'll just say, I'll be frank, that's ways off, and at the moment there's nothing we could do to really change that right now. We have no power to really affect that. We're at the mercy of the current regime in terms of, because again, when we're doing KYC, we're entering the fiat world, and that's not our world anymore. That's someone else's, right? And so there's a lot of regulation and convention built up there that we have to sort of play by the tune too. And again, if some banks want to be forward looking and some regulation does, and they want to experiment with doing on-chain ones, we would love that. I think all of us would. But I don't expect that to wake up and have that be the norm tomorrow, unfortunately.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. It's definitely an uphill battle on its own. But thank you so much for the response. I could go on and on with questions, but I think I'm complete now. Good show, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you also for taking time out of your day to listen and to ask questions. It's also really kind of you. Cool. I think right now there's no requests. I might give it a bit of a moment now, a minute or two, in case someone else comes in. You guys good? It's been roughly 1.5 hours. Are you? Yeah. Have you had your water? Is your throat dry?
I made sure to have some tea before now.
Right? But you guys are pros.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. In case no one jumps in with a question in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope everyone had a chance to learn something. I definitely did. I will definitely see you next week for Project Spotlight number 6. And I do have to repeat, don't forget, Project Spotlight is not financial advice. It is merely a stage for amazing projects building on Cardano, such as MELD here, for you to learn more in depth, about directly from the team, getting this immediate info from the team. So this is not financial advice, although MELD is a very interesting, very big, very cool project. But yeah, still no questions. So I am going to thank you guys, Matt and Victor, for your time today. This was really fantastic. You guys gave us so much really good input. I learned quite a lot. And yeah, I think see you guys next week on your Twitter space, right?
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for having us, and looking forward to the updates from MuesliSwap. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to drop it once more for the ones that maybe joined in later. I think tomorrow will be our next wave of liquidity pools, and most likely MELD will be the first one of the bunch. So after Milk. So there's something to look forward to. And on top of that, yeah, we're going to be having some nice little launches ahead of the drop of V2. And yeah, V2 is definitely something to look forward to. I've seen the designs and all of the little features and functionalities that the team is planning, and it's really, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. All right. Then thank you guys, and I wish you a wonderful evening or a great rest of the day, depending on where you are. And I'll see you next week.
Take it easy, everyone. Thanks.
See ya. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.